I'll call on you in the order you happen to be on my screen, and then if you want to say, that'll be great. Anne, you're first to my screen. Would you like to say?
I'm in Northern California near San Francisco, and it's sunny today for a change. So happy.
Thank you. Tiferet?
Hi, I'm Tiferet. I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and very recently back from an epic journey in Southeast Asia, and it's going to snow here today.
Well, welcome home. And Liz?
Hi, I'm from the Netherlands. I live near Amsterdam in a little village, and we had a lot of rain, and today it's dry.
Oh, great to have you with us. Welcome. Lynn, would you like to say?
Sure. Hi, I'm Lynn. I'm in Colleyville, Texas, which is a little city in between Dallas and Fort Worth. Glad to be here.
Great to have you with us. Welcome to everyone who's just joining us. We're just going around saying our name and where we are in the world so we can hear each other's voices. Hina, would you like to?
Hi.
Sorry, was that, did you, sorry.
It's okay. There's Hina and Nina. I'm Hina, and I'm in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Thanks, Hina. And sorry, Nina, if that wasn't clear. Nina, do you want to go now?
Sure. I'm Nina. I don't have my camera on right now because I'm just getting back from running an errand, but I will be home soon, and I live in Baltimore, Maryland.
Awesome. Good to have you with us. Welcome. Mira, would you like to?
Hello, I'm Mira, and I'm in South Central Minnesota, and I just got back from an 8-day silent Vipassana meditation retreat, so I'm both calm and re-emerging.
Welcome home. Susan K, would you like to?
Hi, everybody. I'm in my art studio in Queens, New York.
Welcome. Lonnie, hi, would you like to?
Hi, I'm Lonnie Cannell, and I'm in Buffalo Grove, just outside Chicago, and it's 72 degrees at the moment, but we'll be getting snow tonight.
Well, thank you.
So.
Sandy, hi, would you like to?
Hi, I'm Sally in New York, outside of New York City. It's just a nice, almost spring day.
Thank you. Welcome. And actually, it's totally fine that you went, Sally. I actually said Sandy, so I'm going to have to be more clear. It's on me. No, it's fine, totally fine. Sandy, do you want to?
There. Oh gosh, I'm having troubles today. Okay, here I am. I am presently in Scottsdale, Arizona, visiting close friends, and we're in their home. And usually I'm from Buffalo Grove, Illinois, near Lonnie. I'm happy to be here.
Great to have you with us. And see, we got up to Aliza.
Good morning, everybody. I'm in Seattle, Washington, and very happy to be here.
Great to have you with us. Welcome. Andrea, hi, do you want to?
Hi, I'm Andrea. I go by Andy, and I'm in suburban Philadelphia.
About time I learned that. Andy, great. I'll try and remember. Welcome. Let's see, Pam, hi.
Hi. Make sure I'm unmuted. I'm in the Denver metro area. It was 66 yesterday, and we woke up to snow squalls this morning, but only about a half an inch of snow on the ground so far. So typical weather in Colorado, but I'm happy to be here with all of you.
Great to have you with us. Welcome. Nancy, hi, do you want to say?
I'm in Olympia, Washington, and I just left the sit at IJS with Rabbi Mira, who's also in Israel, and just going from one teaching to the next all day today.
I hope it keeps going in a good way. Welcome. Talianne, hi, do you want to tell us where you are in the world? Oh, wait, me ask you to unmute. We can't hear you yet.
I was also just coming out of the meditation from Lyra. So so wonderful going to meditation. It's you, and I'm in Florida.
Awesome. Welcome. All right, well, welcome everyone. Think just quickly checking. I didn't skip over anyone by mistake. No, I think we got everyone. I'm Daniel, and I'm in Beit Zayit, which is a little moshav just outside Jerusalem. And we are currently in, like, I guess, like classic Adar weather, as we're going to be learning about together. Adar is this bridge between winter and spring, and one way of understanding the Pesach story that I've mentioned, I think maybe I mentioned this in the video I gave out before the course, is that one way of understanding the Purim story is it's actually a battle between winter and spring, wherein Haman, the bad guy of the Purim story, of the what we call the story of Esther, the Megillah Esther, Haman is kind of like Jack Frost, the winter demon who doesn't want to let go of winter, and he doesn't want to let the new life come through. So that's one of many layers of meaning that we're going to see, and it's kind of really true. We've had a few sunny, nice spring days. There are loads of beautiful wildflowers springing up all over the place. Beautiful, red, yellow, pink, purple. It's just incredible. And then today we just had like buckets of rain and gloom and doom again, which is, as you know, rain in this part of the world is also a blessing. So it's really okay. We've had one of the wettest winters on record for a long time, funnily enough. So we celebrate the blessings therein. I'm going to say Shechianu, the blessing for arriving at moments in life we're grateful to arrive at, in gratitude, and to give thanks for this opportunity we have to do this work together, to be together. And then we'll dive in. We'll open the source sheet and start exploring. I see Ariella just joined us. Hi, Ariella. Ariella, if I unmute you, ask you to unmute, do you want to just tell everyone where you are in the world? We just went around and did that.
I am in Massachusetts on the Rhode Island border.
Thank you so much. Oh, and I saw in the chat, Meta says, hello from London. Well, hello to you, Meta. Great to have you with us.
Thanks a lot. Hi.
Hi. Awesome. So I'll say Shechianu now, and feel free to say along with me in your own way or any way you want, and to say Amen if you want to after, and then we'll go. Oh wow! And before I do that, I see Tony Hanna is with us from Sydney, which means it's the middle of the night for her, which means you get a round of applause. Yeah, seriously, thank you. Great to have you with us. Wow. I don't know whether to feel happy or guilty. But really, thank you for joining us. All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'achiyanu v'kimanu v'kiyanu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, source of life, who's brought us and sustained us and made it possible for us to arrive at this moment together. May the work that we're doing together be of benefit for us, certainly, for everyone we're connected to, ultimately for all beings. We all find greater liberation and peace through it. So I'm going to share my screen, and it's going to work perfectly, as sometimes it does. There you go. That's not bad. And I'm going to start explaining what we're doing here, which, hopefully we will have some clue. A really, really key theme for us, as we're going to see it coming up over and over again in different ways, is the connection between the months. In this case, in our leap year, the months, 2 months of Adar, doubled in this leap year. Adar Rishon, Adar Sheni, the first and second Adar, the month of Adar, and then what follows it, which is Nisan, and of course the festival of Adar, which is Purim, and the festival of Nisan, which is Pesach. And so that's where we're going to begin. A few sources showing that these connections are very, very old and very, very deeply, intentionally placed, really at the foundation of the calendar. The calendar is really built on them. So this is these sources are just really an opportunity to introduce these themes and talk about these things. And we'll come back together regularly in between every few sources to hear any questions or any insights that people want to share on these. So a couple of sources from the Talmud. The Talmud is a rabbinic conversation, begins with the Mishnah in around the year 200, and then the rabbis have a conversation about the Mishnah that lasts for about 500 years, from about 300 to about 800. And of course, nobody agrees on any of these numbers exactly. But that's the rough bones of it. And this is the Babylonian Talmud, which means they were having these conversations in ancient Babylonia. So Rabbi Tavi said, the reason of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, we're kind of jumping in here in the middle of a conversation, he's quoting someone else, that Purim is always celebrated in the Adar, which is closest to Nisan, meaning if there's two Adars, as we have this year, because it's a leap year, if there's two Adars, when do Zoom just did some AI balloons without, I don't want it to do that. It just does that sometimes inexplicably, very strangely. When there's two Adars, the reason, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, that Purim is always in the second Adar, which is the one closest to Nisan, is that it is preferable to juxtapose one redemption to another. The Hebrew is Masamech Geula Legula Adif. I'll highlight that in the Hebrew there. So what does that mean? It means Pesach is a redemption. We were redeemed from slavery in Egypt. And the redemption of Purim, what's the redemption of Purim? Haman, the bad guy of the Purim story of Megillah Esther, wanted to kill us all. And his plan was inverted, it was flipped, it was turned on its head. And instead he and his sons and many of his followers were killed and the Jews were saved. That's also a form of redemption. And Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, we want to put these two redemptions on consecutive full moons, because they're both full moon festivals, right? They're both in the middle of the month. So he wants them to be one right after the other. He doesn't tell us why, which actually in itself is great, because we could spend the whole class and maybe the whole course just thinking of our own responses to that question. Like, what do we get out of this? And in a way, a lot of what we're going to see in this class and in subsequent classes is a response, a lot of different responses to that question. Like, what is the relationship between these? One was a snippet from the Talmud. What is the purpose of the period of 30 days that renders it significant? Now, again, we're jumping in here in the middle of a Talmudic conversation. The Talmudic conversation here in this case is, it's to do with, let me quickly come back so I can see people's faces to this. The subject of the Talmudic conversation we're jumping in the middle of here is, how far in advance are we expected to get rid of chametz? Chametz is leavened bread, like breadcrumbs and things like that, that before Pesach, the Torah tells us to get rid of. And the Talmud wants to know, what if you're going away before the holiday and therefore you're not even going to be around? Are you still responsible to make sure there's no chametz at all in your home, in your domain, even if you're not going to be there? And the Talmud decides that 30 days is the magic number, that if you're going to be there within 30 days of the festival, essentially a month of the festival, then you still have an obligation to act as if you were there and to clean your property. And this is how, like, the halakha, the practice, the law is encoded. Like this ends up being what we actually follow. But if you're going away more than 30 days before and you stay away, you're not going to go home during the festival, then forget about it. Right? That's what the Talmud decides. Now, for our purposes, I'm going to share my screen again. We're interested in this for a slightly different reason, but that's the background. So what is the purpose of the period of 30 days that renders it significant? As it was taught in a Tannaitic teaching, like Tannaitic teaching means the teaching from the earlier sages who wrote the Mishnah. So they were living between 0 and 200 CE, so just before the sages of the Talmud. So we have this earlier tradition that says, one asks about and teaches the halachot of Passover 30 days before Passover. I'll say it again. One asks about and teaches the halachot of Passover 30 days before Passover. And I'll just highlight the Hebrew here and say it one time in Hebrew because it's short and elegant in Hebrew. Shoelin v'dorshin b'hilchot haPesach kodem haPesach shloshim yom. So this actually becomes a principle. Here we can come back together for a second again. This becomes a principle for every festival that the rabbis say, you know what, it's a great way to immerse in the calendar and to prepare for what's coming is 30 days before something, start paying attention to what's coming up. And for some people, that for the ancient rabbis and for many others, that means looking at the halacha, looking at the practice. What are we expected to do on this festival? Of course, there are lots of different ways we can prepare, in terms of consciousness and so on as well. Welcome. I see a few more folks have joined us just while we were getting going. So welcome, Eileen, and welcome, Jake. Very nice to see you guys. So does anybody have any questions or insights on those first couple of sources and just this beginning framing? Hina, please.
There was one thing you said that I didn't understand. You said if you're away for 30 days more than 30 days, then forget about it. Meaning you can clean before the 30 days? Or you don't have to clean at all?
Hina, the good news, if somebody wants to clean, they always can. But the rabbis are saying you don't have to.
You don't have to clean?
But yeah, because if you're going away more than a month before the festival and you're going to stay away from your home, you won't be there during the festival. The rabbi,
and you're going to stay away. Okay,
yeah,
that's the part I misunderstood.
That's the key thing. Yeah, exactly. Sorry if I didn't emphasize that enough. Yeah. Great. Any other questions or insights that arose? Great. Okay. Well, as I said, that's just like a little bit to show how old the connection is between Purim and Pesach. Because what I want to emphasize for us right now is if we're supposed to start learning about Pesach 30 days before it, that is Purim. Purim is 30 days before Pesach. And that's amazing because what did the rabbis say? Actually, let's come back together again. We don't need text for this, but we can just talk to each other. It's nicer to see your faces. What did the rabbis say that we're supposed to be doing on Purim, right? There are 4 mitzvot, 4 commandments or connections or ways of connecting that we have for Purim. One of them is to have a feast that involves drinking, the rabbis say, or getting intoxicated until we're in a different state of consciousness, so we no longer know the difference between blessed is Mordechai and cursed is Haman. We're going to have a whole class of the course just on that, on this idea of getting beyond our usual dat, our usual state of consciousness, our usual state of awareness. What does that mean? So we're supposed to be getting drunk. Remember, in ancient rabbinic times, they drank wine like we drink water, literally, like no exaggeration, because the water often wasn't safe to drink, and wine was just like the staple for a lot of them. So when they say get drunk, they really mean it. They really mean drink way more even than they normally did. And that's not only advice, that's an obligation they placed on us for Purim, as well as there are 3 other things which, again, we're going to explore throughout the course and how they connect to Pesach. Reading the story, which we've mentioned a few times already, of Esther, the Megillah Esther, of Haman and so on, Mordecai and Esther, giving charity gifts to the poor, those needy ones in our community, and finally giving portions to friends or community members or family members or those people we want to connect to, Mishloach Manot. So the rabbis want us on Purim to be very busy with these things, giving gifts, giving to the poor, hearing or maybe even reciting the story of Esther, and partying and getting drunk. So what I find amazing is it seems to me that what they're saying in the snippet is that's how you begin learning about Pesach, because there's absolutely no way that in the middle of getting drunk and running around giving gifts and making sure you hear the story the right time and all these things, there's absolutely no way, and they certainly don't say it anywhere, that you open a book of Jewish law and start learning about the laws of Pesach in that way. That's not what's going on in Purim. And I've been in lots of different communities on Purim, including many different very traditional ones and Hasidic ones. Nobody ever opens the book and says, let's start learning the laws of Pesach. So it must be that the getting drunk and the getting gifts and the parties and the story, that is how we start learning about Pesach. Right? That's what's coming out of this 30 days before business. Right, let's see, Ariella, you have your hand up, please.
Yes. Is the commandment to hear the Megillot Esther, or is it to read? Is it like the shofar where the commandment isn't the blowing, it's the hearing?
Great question. As far as I remember, because you're testing my my studies from rabbinical school a long time ago. As far as I remember, it's one of the mitzvot the rabbis say the obligation is to hear the story. That they want make sure everyone hears the story. Yeah, I believe that's the case. So it's a little different to shofar in that sense, but there's also, I mean, there's similarities too, right? It's supposed to wake us up in a certain way, right? It's supposed to awaken our consciousness in a certain way, like the shofar. Let's see on the chat. Tiferet said, Purim is a type of liberation, a joyous one. Right, exactly. So that, I mean, again, that's kind of what we're going to be exploring throughout the course in so many different ways and different angles, how the liberation of Purim prepares us, right? What door does it open, which the rabbis thought was essential before Pesach. And Mira says, I'm still uncomfortable with the thought idea of getting drunk. Well, Mira, you're in very good company in terms of rabbis, because throughout the generations, so many rabbis push back on that because they're so uncomfortable with it for so many reasons, including how it makes a lot of people behave. So you're in very good company. And I'll say you're also in good company in terms of, like for myself, I don't drink. My body doesn't tolerate alcohol. So I find other ways to fulfill that obligation, which I think are very true to the spirit of it. And there's a beautiful Hasidic teaching by the Netivot Shalom, who we're going to learn some of his sources. This is unfortunately only available in Hebrew, and Netivot Shalom is a relatively recent Hasidic master. We'll see some of his teachings in a few moments, well, in several minutes in the class. So he passed away about the year 2000. He said that the rabbis actually say in the Talmud, we should get intoxicated on Purim. And so he says, you see, we should get intoxicated not on alcohol, but on Purim. So, and he really means it. He gives the whole teaching explaining how it's a state of consciousness that comes with the day itself. And this is something we see in our texts and we experience ourselves in our own lives. The festival is an opening to a certain kind of consciousness, the rabbis talk about an illumination, which anybody who prepares for the festival can experience. And then that is part of what it does for us. It helps carry us forward in our lives in a certain way, preparing the way for the next thing. So the illumination of Purim and Mordechai, as they call it, is going to help prepare us for Pesach. Anyone else want to share anything? Now, Mira says, yes, other ways, since we are often deluded, we could pay attention to states of consciousness. Exactly. Exactly. It would be being not deluded would be a good start, right? Exactly. Nancy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that, pretty much what you said about it's not like, okay, it was said as like drink until you can't discern this or that, but just it means changing consciousness. And perhaps, in a nutshell, the jokey thing that Jews say on holidays, they tried to kill us, we survived, let's eat, let's celebrate. I mean, that's encapsulated in Purim.
Yes, it is. It very much is. Actually, that gives me the perfect opportunity to share something that it didn't fit on the sheet. There's a teaching that says that Purim includes every festival we have, that it's like the ultimate festival, and the teaching goes through and says this element of the festival is like this, and Yom Kippur, Hanukkah, it shows how they're all included in Purim. And it is a relatively late festival. It's not the very last one we have added, that's Hanukkah, but it is added by the rabbis with chutzpah, because for the rabbis to add a festival to the Torah cycle of festivals is already chutzpah. And as we're going to see in the course, they really make it a linchpin. There are so many things about Purim that the rabbis say the whole calendar and the whole Jewish worldview, our whole relationship with Torah wouldn't actually make sense without Purim, which is very brazen of them to say, considering how late it happened in the story, right? Because they're saying something that came along so late in the story was missing until it came along. So we'll see that together. Let's go back to the sheet. Okay, so Sefer Yetzirah, our oldest mystical text. Academics say it's probably from the Talmudic era, maybe roughly 500 or 600. Andy says on the chat, I've been told Purim is one of the few holidays that will still be celebrated after Mashiach comes in the Messianic era. Yes, definitely. That's the source we'll probably see together. Yeah, that's a very important and rightfully famous teaching. And again, that really speaks to what I was just saying. So thank you for saying, because for the rabbis to come along and add it, and not only add it, but then claim, it's the rabbis who make that claim that Andy just said in the chat. The rabbis say all of the other festivals will be annulled, but not Purim. So that, yeah, that's also a similar chutzpah on their part, and we'll have to see what, why they're saying that. So Sefer Yetzirah from the Talmudic era, oldest mystical text. It says in chapter 5 of Sefer Yetzirah that every month in our calendar, every Hebrew month, has certain characteristics, have a constellation related to it, which match up with Western astrology. So will be, it matches up with, models of astrology that we're familiar with. It has a letter of the Aleph Bet connected to it, and it has a human faculty or activity connected to it. We're not going to read these in detail or spend a long time on Sefer Yetzirah, because that's something we could spend a long time on, and it would take us a long way off track. All I wanted to show is that the first snippet is about Adar. If I highlight the word Adar here, you'll see it there on the third line from the bottom of the first snippet, Adar. And the second snippet is about Nisan. So I just wanted to show that Adar, the human faculty or activity concerned with Adar, is laughter. In Hebrew, that's schok, the laughter. And then for Nisan, the following month, the human faculty or activity is speech, or sicha in the Hebrew. So I just wanted to show that in this very old text, the area that we're being asked to pay attention to of our lives, the activity, the thing that we do, and that, just to give you an example, other months involve eating, sleeping, listening, seeing. There are so many different things that human beings do that we could be paying attention to, but Adar is about laughter. And then that leads us, somehow that prepares us into Nisan, which is about speech. So it's the journey. One way of understanding this journey is the journey from laughter to speech. And so that's one dimension of what we're going to be looking at together. Let's just come back together. Did anyone want to ask anything about that or say anything about that? Great. Okay, then we will carry on. And this is that was kind of like the intro section of setting the scene. Now we're going to see the main subject of this class is simcha, which is usually translated as joy. And so that we're going to see a couple of really key ancient primary sources about joy, and then see how we can understand it in terms of our own embodied experience and do some meditation practice with that. So joy, again from the Talmud. First of all, the Mishnah, which is the first layer of the Talmud, and then the Gemara, which is the commentary on it. So the Mishnah says, from when the month of Av begins, we reduce joy. So Av, some of you may know, is a summer month in the Hebrew calendar, the month of fasting, month of anxiety about water, and also the month where we mourn the destruction of the temples. And that's why we reduce in joy. We have both this seasonal and this historical anxiety at this time. We begin mourning for the temple. So we reduce in joy when we begin Av. And then the commentary, the Gemara says, Rav Yehuda, son of Rav Shmuel Bar Shelat, said in the name of Rav, just as when Av begins, we reduce joy, so too, when the month of Adar begins, we increase joy. So this is fascinating on so many levels. They could have just told us, let's come back together here for this. They could have just told us, Adar is a happy time. Be happy in Adar, right? When Adar enters, increase in joy. But they had to juxtapose it, or they chose to juxtapose it to Av. And it seems that part of what is going on here is that the rabbis view Purim as being central to the issue of the temple, which is a layer of meaning that I think is very, very absent from most people's celebration of Purim today. Right? I don't think there's much consciousness that it has that connection. So it's fascinating to know that it is there in the foundational text. What's going on from the rabbinic perspective, and say the rabbis, the rabbis in the Talmud, they say that the story of Purim led to the rebuilding of the temple. It happens, they say, in the exile between the first and second temples. And what happens is, they say, is that Esther being queen, is able to exert influence and to set the ball in motion so that the next monarch who takes the throne after Ahasuerus, the timeline is very unclear and there's lots of arguing about it, but there's somebody called Darius who becomes king at some point, and some of the rabbis claim that's Esther's son. Basically, they say that Esther exerts its influence, then her son takes the throne, and Darius is the monarch of the empire. Actually, changes from being the Babylonian Empire to the Persian Empire. He's the monarch who says the Jews can go back to their land and they can rebuild the temple. Like there's like a decree from the king of the ruler of the empire that says the Jews can go home and rebuild their temple. And so the rabbis say the story of Esther and Haman is not just about what happened at that moment where the Jews were saved. I mean, Dayenu, and that would be enough for us, right? The Jews were all saved. That's a good story. But they say it's actually also about the rebuilding of the temple. And that's at least one way we can understand why they're juxtaposing it to Av. Then Av, we're sad because the temple was destroyed, and temple represents global peace and harmony. And in Adar, we took a step towards rebuilding the temple. I'll say one more thing about that, and then I'll be happy to hear people's, what people want to share about it. This is also a major theme to do with Nissan that is also sometimes not so widely talked about, not because we're so busy and excited in Nissan talking about Pesach, which is very exciting, and there's lots to talk about. But for the rabbis, Nissan, the first day of Nissan, is the day that the Mishkan, which is the proto-temple, the tabernacle, the portable temple that the Israelites had in the desert for 40 years running around, they had a portable temple. So the Mishkan was inaugurated on the first day of Nisan. And the rabbis are very excited about that. They say that's the first time that the divine presence, the Shekhinah, dwells intimately down here on earth since before the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve ate from the fruit of the tree. They shouldn't have done that, and that like caused a major cosmic rift and like made the whole world a little bit off. So the inauguration of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, on the first day of Nisan is a major tikkun olam, is a major fixing of the universe, a major cosmic healing that brings the Shekhinah down to dwell with us. The word Mishkan, the root of it in Hebrew is the same as for Shekhinah. It means indwelling, a place where Shekhinah dwells. So for the rabbis, it's very natural and obvious that on Adar we're excited and happy, partly because we're getting closer to the second temple being inaugurated, which is like a good thing for the universe because it brings cosmic harmony and balance and wholesomeness and peace. And that leads us towards Nisan, when the very first proto-temple was inaugurated. That's like if you have a rabbinic calendar, that's what's on it, right? That's what they're excited about. All right, let's hear from you, and then we'll see what's coming up. Talian, you've had your hand up, please.
I think it's so interesting, and I don't know if you are pointing it out soon, that when we were given the Teneseret Debrot, the Ten Commandments, it was over us. It wasn't the free choice. We hear it. I always get excited about this, the Purim, is that here we're making this decision. We're making that freedom. So it ties into the freedom. We're making that choice of freedom to, in Purim. But also when you were just mentioning about the wasn't that in Tetzaveh, or was it this week, that I shall Shekanti b'tochem, I will it's just like I will build, make me a temple so I can dwell within you, is the same way I was thinking about how that parallels to Lech Lecha, and God saying, go to yourself. So it's like it's God coming into us in Lech Lecha, and also coming to us into us again.
Whoa, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to reflect on both those things you said. Thank you so much. So the first thing we're going to spend a lot of time on throughout the course, talking about how one of the real key differences between Purim and Pesach is God is so hidden on Purim, and the miracles of Purim are so hidden as opposed to Pesach. And the rabbis say that gives us so much more freedom and responsibility. And that is one way of understanding why Purim happens in the final month. The Torah begins counting the months in Nisan. Nisan's the first month. So we finish the cycle with this time of Purim where everything is hidden and we get to make our choices for ourselves. It's basically like we're like growing up and leaving the house, and then we begin all over again. But it's like something about making the choice for ourselves with real freedom is very important. And the other thing you said is also very important, that the physical structure of the Mishkan or the temple is not really the important thing. I should have mentioned this. I'm glad you did. Thank you for mentioning it. Like God says from the very beginning, the point of making this structure is that I can dwell intimately with you, right? It's about that. And the rabbis make it very clear that's the point, that's the priority, that's the value, is intimacy with the divine, and how that helps us be the people we want to be. So thank you for that. I'm noticing a tiny bit of background noise, so I'm gonna just quickly mute folks who are not speaking right now, and then but feel free to unmute at the right time should you need to or want to. And Susan, you've been waiting patiently. What would you like to share?
Two things. First, I'm insanely happy to be here. I have to say that. I'm just usually happy to be here. And the other thing is that when the last text about when begins, we reduce joy, and when Adar begins, what that seems to strike me as so profound right now, because it's to me, how I read it is that it is such a reminder for us, and Dafka now, especially now, that we as humans have a full range of experience in our calendar, and that the calendar makes complete space for that, to honor all of that, and that the whole question of now how we can we, must we, of course, access joy? Yes. And while, yes, that there will be time that we will be in the other place. So I just want, that's where it hit me immediately, how modern, how it fits for right now. And it has fit for us always, because has there ever been a time that we haven't experienced a tragedy? I mean, so there you have it. But that's what I wanted to say.
Susan, thank you. I really resonate with that. And actually, it's a perfect segue to the next section, because the question that comes to me, first of all, like, yes, the calendar makes space for all our different emotions. Like, absolutely, it really does. And of course, the question comes up like, well, it seems to be telling me to feel a certain thing at a certain time. What if I happen not to be feeling that thing at that time, right? And so, like, do I have to like wait till the appointed time to feel the right thing at the right time? And so what we're going to look at now is like how simcha doesn't have to be understood only as, yay, something good just happened, I just won the lottery, and so on, right? And that's exactly where we're going. Still, you might find, cultivating simcha is a practice, it's a choice, and something to invest in, and it's going to happen differently for every person. And depending on where we are in our lives in so many respects, it might be incredibly challenging, right? It might not be so easily available or accessible to someone. Nonetheless, consider it an invitation. Consider it the rabbis are like pointing out, a map of a journey that they're suggesting. And of course, within that, everyone's going to have their own variations and their own unique experience. Tiferet says on chat, we have permission, indeed, encouragement to experience joy. I want to be ready for that. Joy has been absent these months. Thank you, Susan. Beautiful. Yeah, I appreciate that, Tiferet, because there is something comforting about that permission, right? And about the emphasis put on it there. So thank you for that. Annalise, please.
Can you explain another time you said Purim is the end of the calendar, and then everything is hidden, God is hidden. But why is that a good message? Can you explain?
Yeah, absolutely. I apologize if I was I mentioned it in passing, because we will spend more time on this. It's like a theme we're going to come back to, but I'll say it more slowly and more clearly. I was trying to say that it feels to me like before we can begin again on Pesach, And Pesach is the beginning of our story in so many ways. The first of the months in the Torah, the beginning of the history of our people in the Torah is, God says now, essentially, like now we are born as a people in the Torah. It feels like before we can be born, like again, like being renewed, being birthed again, we have to earn responsibility and freedom. It feels like a spiral that like we like finished going around like one layer with Purim is the end of going around, and then if we do good, like if we grow, then next time is going to be deeper or higher or more meaningful. So that's what I was trying to say. Awesome, you're welcome. Anyone else want to ask or share anything? Hina said, I didn't understand the point about how we have choice on Purim for freedom. What's the connection there? Hina, I heard it as Purim is about that human agency versus Father or God. Right. Thank you, Nina. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say with that point exactly. Like how on Purim, in the story of Purim, in the story of Esther, God is not mentioned and things like that. Exactly. And yet, despite that, despite it seeming like very secular, and Purim, the story of Purim just being really about sex and politics is really what it's actually about, and taxes. There's no mention of God or anything religious, certainly not the temple, right? There's nothing like remotely conventionally religious about the Purim story, but despite that, the rabbis take it and make it the linchpin of the whole thing and say, yeah, this is the basis of our relationship with Torah and all these things. Just seeing a few more things on the chat. Susan says it's holding both at once, heartbreak and the need to cultivate joy. Amen to that. And so the range of emotions that Susan mentioned is something we're definitely going to come back to. And Andy says, I'm newly aware of the juxtapositions, balances in the year in the text and traditions. Reminds us of the Sephirot, the balance left and right with the center. Beautiful. So Andy, the Kabbalists make that connection. They go through the calendar and say, this festival relates to this Sephirah and this one that relates to that one and so on. So you're bang on with that. Beautiful. Nina says, God is right. God is dwelling within us, especially within Esther. Beautiful. Beautiful. Right. And the 2 months of joy. Maybe we need it more than ever this year. Beautiful. Tiferet. Purim teaches us that God is present even when we cannot see God. Right. So that. Thank you for saying that. That's actually kind of what I'm trying to say also with this point about the hiddenness and the revealed. And let me come back to what Tiferet said there on the chat and tie it back to the point about the calendar and the spiral. If the point of God taking us out of Egypt was for us to have a relationship with God, which is how the mystics view it, then to have a more mature relationship is one where we don't need God to constantly be the kind of helicopter parent constantly doing miracles for us. So that's how I understand the cycle closing with Purim is like we finally gain a little bit more maturity and independence, and then the relationship continues with us being more mature and then less dependent, on a healthier way. Psychologists might call this earned secure attachment, right? You can have like healthy relationship, a healthy love, but it's like you've earned it yourself because you've gone through the work yourself. But that's the only way to get that is to have a situation where, like Purim, the source of love and attachment is actually taken away, and then you have to earn it for yourself by doing the work yourself. Beautiful. Esther, her name means Nistar hidden. Exactly, right. So these are things we're definitely going to unpack a lot throughout the course. And Julian says sometimes different Kabbalists give different qualities, meanings to each festival to the others. Yes, they do. Thank you, Julian. They, of course, two Jews, million opinions. If anyone's interested in the details of that, I can share that. Let's hear from Nancy and then Jay. Nancy, please.
This is actually from Tiferet, the thing that Purim is about liberation, which also makes me want to say that that is the feeling with joy too, of like it's a release.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a really important aspect of joy, which we're going to see teachings about that and practice with that also. Maybe not in this class, but probably more in next week's. Thank you for mentioning that, Nancy. And Jake, please.
Thanks. Yeah, I love it's a beautiful teaching about this idea of the kind of the maturity and the kind of people stepping like people stepping away from God like children stepping away from a parent. But you're talking about maturity, but then from what I remember of the Purim story is, the response at the end of it is this like bloody vengeance. And and there's other elements of the story I remember being uncomfortable with. It doesn't feel like a mature thing going on in the actual details of the story. So I don't know if that just came to mind. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you. So everything I was saying about God being hidden in us, like growing up and all that stuff, is really based on how the Kabbalists understand the story in the context of our calendar. The part of the story that you're talking about, I think, is complicated and needs to be looked at. And I think it's right if it makes us uncomfortable and makes us want to study it. I think there are a lot of different perspectives on it, to be honest, because one perspective on it that I think is, for me, like really worth considering, is certainly not the only one, is that the people who the king had already said that he wanted to just in case anyone doesn't know the whole story, I'll try and give some context. The king originally issued a decree saying on a certain day all the Jews should be attacked and annihilated and wiped out, and then the king said, oops, I didn't really mean it, but I can't take back my decree because there's like a silly rule that says the king can never take back his decree. So the king issued another decree that said the Jews are allowed to defend themselves. But everybody knew throughout the empire that the will of the king was that the Jews should not be harmed. So the only people who still attacked them were people who, despite the king not wanting them to, really wanted to attack the Jews. And they did that knowing that they were likely to get into a fight because the Jews had been given the right to defend themselves by a different royal decree. And so the Jews defended themselves. That's one way of understanding the story. The way that you presented it is also possible. I'm not saying it's the only reading, but for the Kabbalists, certainly they don't like see it as like a tragedy that the people who like tried to harm the Jews were defeated. That's not something they kind of like lose sleep over. But I think as modern people today, I think there is what to talk about there. But I'm just speaking about it, how it's seen in the tradition. Thank you. Let's see, anything else on the chat? Julian says it's so strange, funny that I was thinking so much about the strange goings on the previous one. I feel this one. Okay, I don't know what that means. That's fine. Great. So thank you everyone who's been sharing. This has been great. We have some work to do now on this way of understanding simcha. I'm going to share my screen again, as not just the kind of joy that means I just won the lottery. In fact, we have a different word for that. We have so many words of joy. I think someone mentioned this on the chat, but I was in between comments, so I didn't get to say. But that winning the lottery is actually sason. That's a different word for joy that we have. A verse in the Megillah that actually says simcha and sason, and some other words too that we'll see. But simcha, I think the person who shared it on the chat, and I'm sorry I don't remember who it was, put it really well. They said it's about enjoying the journey rather than the destination. It's not so much about I got something good or I won. It's about the process, whatever's going on, is inherently good. In fact, you might say the journey is the destination. Like that's something we're going to explore a lot in next week's class, about how there are a lot of sources about that, about how the process, which is by definition incomplete and difficult, how we can nonetheless feel completion and wholeness in it, and how that's a way to access simcha. So this is a source about that. This is from the Mishnah, from Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avot, a very ancient and famous source. So it says, who is rich? One who rejoices in their lot. As it is said, you shall enjoy the fruit of your labors, you shall be happy and you shall prosper. You shall be happy in this world and you shall prosper in the world to come. So most of the source we don't actually, we really, really just need pretty much the first line for now, but it's all important and we will come back to the rest of it later. Who is rich? One who rejoices in their lot. The Hebrew I'll just highlight and read. It's very short and elegant. Ezehu ashir hasameach b'chelko. So that you see in the word hasameach, one who rejoices is clearly the same letters and the same root and the same core meaning as simcha, this word for joy, that the rabbi said, when Adar begins, we are marbim b'simcha. Here, I'll highlight it in the source above, right? When Adar begins, we increase in this quality of joy. And here we're being told in different texts, not dependent on the calendar, but just at any time, when we are happy with our lot. Chelek, chalko, can also mean portion. It's like that which I have been given, dealt, like you might say, like the cards I've been given, the hand I've been given by life. So the chelek, the piece of reality that is mine right now, the lot, the fate that God has given me right now. When I'm happy with that, that's simcha. I see loads of things on the chat. Let's just come back together so we can see if any of this is relevant. If people want to ask things or say things. Beautiful. Sally says, Rabbi Alan Zu says, joy is any feeling fully felt. I very much resonate with that, and I think we'll see that. And yes, osher is a word related to joy. Exactly. Beautiful. Okay. I'm not Susan, no, we're not going to have time to unpack all the different words for joy. We won't have time, but I will focus on simcha. We'll see, some depth and do some practice with it. And I see it was Nina who said that thing about the journey and the destination. So thank you for that, Nina. That was great. Very, very much where we're going. No pun intended. So let's do a little bit more learning, and then we'll do the practice. So we're going to see now about the connection between simcha, this certain kind of joy, and trust, bitachon. Bitachon is related to all of these words in Hebrew at the top of the next page. So we've got liv koach, to trust or rely on. Bitachon itself, which is trust, but also safety or security. So in English, these words all don't all necessarily mean the same thing, but in Hebrew, you say bitachon, it has all of these connotations: trust, safety, or security. So that's the key one for us right now, bitachon. Betuach, sure or confident, and lebetach is safely or securely. It's often said in the Torah and in the Hebrew Bible and the Tanakh, the people dwelt safely or securely. Like, it means that there was a period of time without war, the people dwelt levetach. So for us, as I said, mostly we're interested in bitachon, which is trust, safety, or security. And as we're going to see, how this relates to simcha. So a source now from the Hasidic tradition, specifically from the Breslov tradition of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, and from his student, Reb Nosson, who was the major kind of funnel and mouthpiece for a lot of Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Rabbi Nachman himself wrote really pretty much just one book, kind of one and a half, but Reb Nosson wrote many, many, many books, mostly channeling his teacher's wisdom through his own. And this is what he says here. He says, when a person has trust in the Blessed Divine and doesn't worry at all about what they will eat tomorrow, this is the essence of being rich. As it says, who is rich? One who rejoices in their lot. So that's the quote from Perchei Avot, from the Mishnah that we just saw above. Who is rich? Somebody who rejoices in their lot, who's happy with their portion, we might say. For such a person has no worry or fear whatsoever, because they are confident that the Blessed Divine will certainly never abandon them. So if I am just going to quickly mute everyone again, just to reduce the background noise, and feel free to unmute at the right time. So when a person has trust in God, doesn't worry about what they'll eat tomorrow, that's being rich, he says. That's what it means to really be rich. And it's part of a bigger teaching where he talks about what the opposite to that is. He says, you can have a lot of money, a lot of possessions, a lot of material things, but be very worried about it. And there's actually a line in the teachings of the ancient rabbis where they say, the more money you have, the more worries you have about it. The more money, more problems, more money, more anxiety, because the more you want to protect what you have, and the more things could go wrong, right? So a person who doesn't worry about it, that is really being rich. That's real prosperity, real comfort. And this person has no worry or fear at all because they are confident. And this word, the word confident here is batuach, which is this word for they trust. They trust, they have confidence that God will certainly never abandon them. So it's interesting he uses the language of abandonment. I already mentioned before attachment and the need for us to earn our own sense of being loved, right? And the calendar kind of seeming to have a wisdom about that. I think the fear of being abandoned and the experience that we all had at some point in some way, even if we had the most loving present parents in the world, there's some way in which our parents cannot meet all of our needs, and that we eventually discover that we have to find ourselves and meet our own needs. And he's saying that one way that this person is rich is they are so confident in God. They have such a trust, a reliance on God, that they know God will never abandon them, that they can feel that way. Let's just see things. So Rabbi Nachman said in also this work, Sefer Hamidot, explicitly making the connection for us, he said, Al yedei bitachon ba'simcha, that trust in God brings joy, or I might translate it as through bitachon, through this quality of trust, safety, security, we come to joy. So these things, simcha and bitachon, he's actually said the connection between them flows both ways. They're very closely related, and they very much lead to each other, and that's what we're going to practice with. But we're going to take it a level deeper, because really, so far, we could just interpret this as, don't worry about it, God will help you out, and God will always help you out, and everything will be okay. But we all know that isn't actually how life always works, right? We all know that, like, we don't always get everything we need, that people unfortunately suffer in very real ways. It doesn't always work out every time, right? So we're going to have to go a level deeper. Just seeing on the chat, Nina wrote, do you interpret it as they both trust the divine and are experiencing food insecurity, or that because they trust the divine, they don't worry about food, even if it's scarce? Yeah, great question, Nina. Exactly. I'm trying to address that now. By saying we should go a level deeper, because I don't think he could possibly be saying that, like, if you trust in God, nothing bad will happen to you. Because I think lots of bad things happen to Jews throughout our history, and he knows that very well. And by the way, at the time he was living and writing, lots of bad things were still happening to Jews, including his community and including the place where he lived. So I don't think he's saying everything will definitely be okay. I think that there's a deeper meaning. I think he's saying it changes our experience of it. I think he's saying that level of trust changes how we experience what happens to us. Right, and Mira says, God, what is God just a concept? Like, actually, Mira, I might need you to explain, like say slightly more exactly what you mean. Are you saying like God is like another word for kind of what is, or how life manifests? If that's it, then that's certainly consistent with how the rabbis see it when they say like Shekhinah is another description of life as we know it. I'll move on for now, and we'll come back to that as people respond. I mentioned before this book and this Rabbi did in Tivot Shalom. He passed away in the year 2000, like it says here. Reb Shalom Noach Berezovsky, very beloved Hasidic leader, very known for his warmth and openness in a lot of ways. So this is his work on Purim. It's actually relatively small, which is great. Very, very, very handy. These are a couple of gems from it, which will help us take these teachings about Simcha and Bitachon a level deeper. So he says, this is the meaning of when the month of Adar begins, we increase joy. That quote we saw from the Talmud about beginning this time and increasing joy. So he says, this is what it means. It is a great level, it is a great level of joy when a Jew rejoices in their lot. So the first thing he does is he quotes the other teaching we already saw. So we're able to understand what he's talking about, which said, who is rich? Somebody who rejoices in their lot. Samech b'chelko. So he says it's a very, very great level of joy. when a Jew rejoices in their lot, when they're happy with what life has given them, the hand they've been dealt, i.e., they are pleased with the Creator's management of the world, i.e., they're pleased with how God is running the world. It's kind of a funny phrase in Hebrew, right? In English, it sounds funny to say. It's like kind of chutzpahdik, like we are happy how God is running the world, as if we get to, have an opinion about it. So it is a great level of joy when a Jew rejoices in their lot, when they're happy with their portion, and they're pleased with how God is running the world, and carry on, and they believe that everything God does, he does for the best. So this is a teaching from Rabbi Akiva in the Talmud. Everything God does, he does for the best. And again, I'm bringing this to challenge it, and we're going to go a level deeper soon, but I'm setting, I want to set up the kind of traditional religious, every religion says this. Every religion has teachings which say, don't worry about stuff that seems bad because God is good and everything is good. Yes, there's suffering in the world, but don't let it bother you too much because God is love and God is loving and therefore it must be okay, right? That's kind of the beginning, which we're going to go past. This person is described by the verse. He carries on, blessed is the man who trusts in God, Hashem. Hashem shall be his trust, from Jeremiah. Baruch hagever sheif dachu Hashem. Because they feel, he goes, because they feel that I, God, am with him in distress, it's a line from Psalms, their heart readily trusts in God, and so Hashem shall be his trust. And this is the function of Adar and Purim. So we're going to go deeper in the next snippet, but first just to kind of say that he's started to show here the direction he's going to go in, but it's very subtle, and having me read it to you for the first time, it's not obvious at all, but having read it many times and seen the whole teaching, he's just hinting where he's going to go with it, which is at first he's saying, don't worry, everything is okay because God is good, everything God does is for the best, and we should trust in God. But the last bit, he begins to show the direction he's going in, because he starts to give a little bit more psychological insight about how this works. He says, because they feel that I, God, am with him in distress, because let's put it all in the first person, because I feel that God is with me in distress, my heart readily trusts in God. So, and then what he does is he brings the end of the verse from Jeremiah, though it was just a couple of lines above. God, Hashem, will be my trust. So if I feel that God is with me in the distress, my heart is open or close to trusting in God. It's like available. It's like prone to trusting in God. Then I can have this kind of relationship where God will be there for me. See, he's saying there's something about my internal world, my internal conditioning that is important, right? About how God will then show up for me depending on how the state of my heart is. And he says this is the function of Adar and Purim. And then the next teaching just builds on that and takes it deeper, and then we'll be almost ready to practice. He says there is trust, and just to highlight, the word we're using here is bitachon. Bitachon, this trust, which also means safety and security. There is trust that resides in our mind and trust that resides in our heart. Then there is trust that resides in our limbs, and actually means in every part of the body, that every different organ and every different facet of the body, that penetrates every part of our bodies with the feeling of security, like the feeling of serenity of a child whose father is by their side, who is not afraid of anything. This is the reason for Purim. Our sages decreed it in order to illuminate to each Jew the power of trust. So this is what we're going to practice with. Because when I read a text, let's come back together and talk together and hear each other and see each other. So when I read a text that says, don't worry, everything's okay, God loves you and God is good, and everything that seems to be bad is actually good, I may or may not feel like buying that, depending on what kind of day I'm having, right? And what's going on in the world and how I'm feeling. And it may or may not bring me comfort or encouragement, depending on everything about what's going on with me. But when I read a text that says what he said in that last piece, which is trust can be in your mind and trust can be in your heart, but it can also be in every limb and every part of your body, then what that says to me is that's an invitation for us to cultivate it in our bodies, right? That's something we can practice with. And the great thing about practice is there's no fixed destination. There's no right or wrong with it. There's no getting it right. And we're going to do this practice together. Have instructions that'll guide us through it. But I want to stress before we do it, there's no doing it well or doing it badly, because it's just a practice where we get to explore what happens when we introduce the question of where is my relationship right now with bitachon, in whatever way I'm relating to it, trust, safety, security. When I check out my right foot right now, can I feel secure and safe there, right? Can I experience safety doing that? And can I do that with other parts of my body? And maybe eventually, can I do that with all of my body? And probably it'll be different every time I do practice, depending on lots of factors. So that's the practice we're going to do. I see a bunch of things on the chat that I want to try and do justice to, but I think some of them are too long for me to to get to. Okay, Mira, I saw what you wrote about personification. Great. Okay, yeah. What is Shekhinah? The rabbis say, the Kabbalists say, Shekhinah means everything that is. So we're good. God doesn't have to be the old man in the sky with a beard or any other kind of personal thing. Julian, thank you for that message, but it's a bit too long for me to respond to. Great. Brilliant. Sally, really glad you asked that question on the chat about the connection to Purim. It seems from, and maybe it's not obvious from that snippet, so sorry if I didn't bring everything in the whole context. It seems from the rest of the teaching that he's saying the Purim story, the way, this is actually, it's good because it builds on everything we talked about before. Let's talk about the Purim story. We did a couple of details we didn't mention before. It seems like Haman is certain to win, right? It seems like, the bad guy, again, like Jack Frost, Winter, wants to kill all the Jews. It seems like he's like definitely going to win. He's the king's number 2. He's really powerful. The king has agreed to his wicked plan. He's like, Haman has like built his special gallows to hang Mordecai. He's like all like set up and like all the little pieces of his plan all look so perfect. And yet there's this very dramatic inversion. And a couple of things about that. One is that the inversion is one of the characteristics of the day, that the text of the Megillah says of an Na'afochu, it was turned on its head. And also I want to say, I think it's also about that hiddenness we mentioned before, that it happens without God even seeming to do it, right? Like when we read in the Torah, we read about the story of us leaving Egypt, which again is like what this is all, taking us towards. It says, God came down to Egypt and did all these crazy miracles. It's like, whoa, God, you did that. That's so cool. But like here, it's like actually kind of to build on what Mira is asking in the chat about, like, what do we call God and how we relate to God. This is just what is. Like, you could read the Megillah and all this stuff just happens. There's absolutely no mention of the divine. Of course, the rabbis find hints and allusions because that's what the rabbis do. Like, that's what the rabbis want to do. But like, it's just a human story. So yeah, brilliant. So thank you for the question. That's really an important connection. Does anyone else want to say or ask anything? Anything coming up for anyone? Great, and let's practice. I'm happy we have time to practice, and then I will have time to come back together after. So let's settle in, make yourself comfortable. If you want to keep your camera on, please do, but if you want to turn it off, and we'll practice for about 10 minutes. Find a posture that's comfortable for you. Let's bring our attention inside. See if we can bring friendliness, compassion, sense of wanting to welcome whatever we might notice inside ourselves. And we're going to start by finding a safe anchor for our attention, our home base. And for many of the practices we'll do together throughout the course, this is where we'll begin. So it could be a safe place in your body where you can rest your attention, maybe the feet, backside, the elbows, somewhere that doesn't give you a lot of pain, trauma. It could be, if the body is not good for you, could be a visualization or even a mantra, just an object for your attention. Of course, our attention is bound to wander, and that's completely fine. But we're going to start by trying to settle a couple of minutes with our anchor, choosing that place in the body or whatever else we're choosing. Trying to keep our attention as close to it as we can, feeling it moment by moment. When we need to, we notice our attention has wandered, bringing it back with compassion. Noticing what's happening there with our anchor and each moment. And while we're here in our safe anchor, we can begin exploring our relationship with simcha, with joy, and with bitachon, with trust, these two qualities, which, as we've learned, are very connected. We've learned how they can help to cultivate each other. We can do this just by gently asking, what is my relationship to each of these qualities in each moment? Is either of them present? Just gently, without any specific expectations, exploring whatever comes. We're still grounded and rooted in our safe anchor. If you would like to stay mostly focused on your safe anchor and keep doing the practice, opening, exploring your relationship with simcha and bitachon, with joy and trust in each moment. And if and when you feel ready, it's also possible to open some of our attention to what's going on in other places in our body or other senses, maybe things we can hear or smell or taste. So I suggest keeping most of our attention still with the safe anchor, nice grounding. But if and when you like to, bring some attention to other parts of your body or other senses, and do the same practice if it feels right to you. Exploring, is there joy or trust? And if so, how they manifest. Anytime we want to, we can fully come back to the safe anchor and start again when we're ready. Practice together silently, another few minutes, about 5 minutes. And we're going to very slowly and gently bring the practice to a close. Take your time. Feel free to move, breathe in any way you want to. Stretch. What do you want to do? And let's come back together as you're ready, when you're ready. We just have about 10 minutes left of the session. Probably a very good use of the time would be to hear from folks if anybody wants to share anything that came up for you during the practice. That's something we can all benefit from. If there are things that people feel would like to share, then please do. Anybody like to? Ariella, please.
Yes. When you asked us to transition to our body sensations and is there joy and is there trust, it was like I have been dealing with a foot injury since September, and I've been in an air boot since November, and it's gotten to a point where I'm just resigned. Like there is no joy. But then when I think about it, it's like I get to say, I mean, I can be joyful just the way this is. Squeaky boot and all. And it gave me some freedom. Because, I mean, it isn't even like I can't drive, I'm bedridden, I've been worse. I've dealt with worse. But yet I'm making this up like this big inconvenience, and it's not. Nothing's broken. It's taking its sweet time to heal. And I'm like making it into something bigger than it actually is. Like, so what? Big deal. I have to wear a boot. I sit in front of this computer more than I'm not. So what difference does, it's not like I want to run a marathon. I'm missing out on skiing. I have little children I've got to run after. None of that. So it's like, be joyful just the way it is. Find joy.
Ariella, thank you. Wow, I think a lot of us resonated with some of what you said. We all do that, right? When things are not how we'd like them to be, and maybe that's part of what this invitation is. What does it mean for the calendar to say increase in joy at this time, right? How silly. But actually, if it's an invitation for us to open in the way that you so beautifully articulate for us, thank you. It's very moving. Does anyone else want to share anything? And by the way, just to give permission, if people had a difficult experience or didn't connect with the practice, that's totally fine and welcome to be shared. In fact, it's healthy and good to share that too. So you're welcome to share whatever it was. Mira, please.
Hi, I'm not exactly sure how to share all this. And one of the things that came up for me is I'm in rural Minnesota. I'm safe. Everything's cool. And I've been reading about the Minister of National Security that talked about with Ramadan coming up, that he wants to limit Palestinians' rights to, you know, yeah. So I mean, I don't know how to articulate all that, but I feel really scared about what that could mean. And, you know, thinking about the Purim story, and look, it all turned out for the right. And I hear extremists, you know, saying things like, you know, the Palestinians don't belong here. And I personally don't agree with that, but yeah, so I get real scared. And I was able to go, I feel joy, that I feel so much connection to us as a people. And I don't know what to do, because like I'm not in Israel, I'm in America, you know, and there's crazy things going on here too. But this is March is Ramadan, and this seems like really crucial. And so my mind said, so like what could be done, blah, blah, you know, and it's like, okay, I'm here, I'm not there. And I mean, I can pray for a good outcome, but you know, and it just seems to fit so much into the Purim story, and I can imagine extremists reading it to make their position right, and
Cool.
the consequences for everyone. Thanks.
Totally, Mira. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure it's like on a, and even if folks didn't know about the exact thing you're mentioning, I'm sure everyone here is like very, very, you know, concerned about what's going on here. I want to say like this is one of the reasons I resonate so much with teachings and practices which bring it into our bodies, because in my own experience, generally speaking, of course, this is not true for everyone all the time, but for I think for a lot of us, a lot of the time, if we can do the work, do the practice of listening more and more to what's going on inside, there's a wisdom there which leads us generally in the right direction, which, you know, which leads us to, you know, the deeper place. You know, remember, you know, the definition of mysticism is, which, you know, all these people on the sheet that I'm bringing, you know, the Hasidic masters and Kabbalists and mystics, is their primary concern is with oneness. And that's you know, that's their, it's a full-time job, not a hobby, you know. That's the thing. That's the like the lens they see everything through. And going into the body, or going into whatever like safe anchor works for each person, you know, if it's not the body, is going into some kind of meditative practice to get, you know, that's a direction it's taking us in. And I trust that, you know, to use the language of trust that we're working with today, I really trust that to lead us in the right direction. And when I say us, I mean me when I'm doing the work, and anyone else who wants to. And do I know what's going to happen here? No. Obviously, I'm very worried about it. Also, very, very worried. But actually, I want to say one other thing about what you said, which is really poignant and beautiful. In the same teaching that I took the excerpt from, where we just read from, where he talked about like feeling the trust in your body, like just a page later after that snippet that I took, he actually says a very profound way to feel bitachon, the sense of safety and security, is to feel connection with the entire people. And it's such an interesting statement, because, you know, it's not like, oh, I feel safe when I connect with other Jews, because Jews are like really powerful and strong. Especially, it's not like, you know, in the context of where a lot of these teachings come from, where Jews were by no definition powerful or strong. But there is a safety nonetheless in that kind of solidarity, in that web of connection. I'll say also that I really felt that, like, in the immediate aftermath of October the 7th, there was just this like incredible sense of connection from like every Jew in the world. It felt like their heart was like so connected, and I really felt it. I felt really held and supported by that. I think that's part of what he's talking about as well. So thank you for everything you shared. Let's hear from a couple more folks, or at least one. We're running out of time. Hina, please. Oh wait, here, I'll unmute you. There you go. Wait, I tried to unmute you. There you go.
And I'm muted. Please give my time to Annie.
Are you sure?
Absolutely, 100%.
Oh, thank you, Hina. That's very kind of you. So Annie, please. Annie, you there? Would you like to share? Yeah, I'll ask you to unmute.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm not, you can't see me. I'm in the middle of doing treatment for my cancer, but I didn't want to miss this class. And I so love the emphasis on the simcha that we can experience, the special simcha that we can experience when we connect with the one, the oneness that all the souls are part of. And it keeps us, when we have our opinions about this is right, that isn't right, this hurts. I have, and I also dealing with a lot of body stuff that doesn't feel so good. It does not preclude joy. And that's a special kind of joy. It's not the fun, as someone said before, of going to Nordstrom's and getting, sassoon, finding something or being drunk in that way. But it's more that intoxication of the freedom actually from the bonds of your physical self. And I'm having to lie down and do certain things. And I experienced being wrapped in the metaphysical arms of the Ein Sof. And that's it's a different kind of fun. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Annie, Chana Bracha, thank you very much for sharing, for joining us and sharing that. That's very profound. I think that's a quote I'm going to try and remember. It's a different kind of fun, right? I love that so much, being held in the arms of the Ein Sof. It's a different kind of fun. I think we're out of time, friends. I want to respect people's time. I want to say thank you all very, very much. I see there's so many more things on the chat I didn't even get to. Thank you to everybody who shared in any way and just for everybody's presence. I'm very, very excited to keep exploring. Next week's class is also about Simcha, continuing very much what we started with this week, and then we'll do about Beyond Da, as I said, and the inner child and intergenerational healing, rewriting our story, our narrative, and our relationship with time, and we'll see how all of these are related. So have a great week until then, and I hope to see everybody then. Shavua Tov, and blessings, and love, and prayers for good news.
Shavua Tov.
Thank you.
Shavua Tov.
Thank you so much.
Shavua Tov.
Great to hear
Thank
from
you,
you.
everybody.
All good blessings to you.
Health and safety for everyone.
Amen.
It's so beautiful to be with you all.
It's beautiful you're
Oh,
here
it's so good
today.
to have you here with us, Annie.
Oh, ditto, ditto, ditto. Many dittos.
Bye-bye.
Love everyone.
Bye.